So I was looking the other day after someone pointed out that there could be an issue with the English Premier League. See, if you look at the Champions League final group stage table, of the 8 teams that automatically progressed to the last 16, 5 of them are English. Now, of the 5 of them, one of them is Arsenal, who looks likely to win the Premier League, and another one is Manchester City, who looks to be their main competition for it. However, some of the other teams include Liverpool, who are in a massive downgrade compared to what they were last season, with a lot of fans wanting manager Arne Slot removed. Tottenham, equally, their fans are desperate for Thomas Frank to be removed, and the club is sitting 15th in the Premier League. And Chelsea, who aren't too bad off in the Premier League, but their defence needs massive improvements, and they've just replaced Enzo Maresca with Liam Rosinha. And there was some big named clubs that missed out on the top 8 for a lot of these teams. Real Madrid missed out, the current champions PSG missed out, Inter Milan missed out, Borussia Dortmund and Atletico Madrid. And that got me thinking, because a lot of people have mentioned that the English Premier League is potentially getting too good, and the league as a whole has really improved with the quality of each team. But that got me thinking about some of the other leagues. I think Italy's in a good place at the moment, or at least a better place than what they were maybe 5 to 10 years ago. The league's had a massive resurgence, it's really entertaining to watch now. Juventus aren't just winning everything every year, every time anymore. AC Milan, Inter Milan and Napoli have all taken league titles in the last 5 years, and it looks like this will be another year without Juventus getting to touch it. France has typically been a pretty poor league. However, Marseille are in a much better place with a playing squad. They look like a really good team at the moment. We've seen the rise in other clubs like Paris FC and Lens. And of course, the current Champions League holders are PSG. Germany seems to still be going strong in the sense that Bayern Munich are still one of the best teams in the world and finished second in the Champions League group stage. And on top of that, we are still seeing German teams sell players to the rest of the world for absolutely astronomical fees. Leipzig, Dortmund and Bayer Leverkusen have all made huge sales in the last few years, racking in so much money. Even if you look outside of the big leagues, Turkey are still managing to pull in big players. How Victor Osimhen is at Galatasaray, I will never know. Fenerbahce have put loads into their squad recently. They've got the likes of Ederson and N'Golo Kante, and they had Mourinho not that long before that. Even Portuguese clubs are doing really well. Porto and Benfica are always bigging up there. Benfica currently have Mourinho, and Sporting finished in the top 8 of the Champions League. And of course, Saudi has the pulling power of all of its financial wealth. But one league that I think's went really backwards over the last 5 to 10 years is the Spanish league. La Liga used to be the main league to watch. At the height of its power, you had Real Madrid and Barcelona, a collection of 22 of the best players on the planet, almost at all times.
I gotta tell you, it was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
On top of that, there was other great clubs in there. You always had Atletico challenging them, the rise of Diego Simeone's teams. They were dominant in Europe, they had some of the best football to watch and some of the best players on the planet. Now, this video isn't to poke at the fact that Spanish clubs aren't doing well in Europe, because of course they are. Barcelona finished in the top 8 of the Champions League. Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid both finished in the qualifying places, and Spain had 5 representatives in the Champions League this year. But if you look at a lot of the big teams in Spain, they all seem to have some massive issues. If we start with Barcelona, they are currently top of the league, and listen, Barcelona are a good team. They have a great squad, they have a really good manager, but no one can deny Barcelona's financial issues. The club is in potentially up to €2.5 billion in debt. They have an immediate €160 million in transfer debt. The Camp Nou needs massive renovations. They have limitations on La Liga spending because of their financial issues. Past wage bill issues of offering players just fees that were far too high, along with renovative issues, have all caused problems for the team.
In terms of money, we have no money.
Now, Barcelona aren't in a bad position, however it is noticeable how much more of a struggle they're in compared to what they were 5, 10, 15 years ago. Real Madrid also have their own issues, but they're very different. Much like they've always been, Real Madrid, the squad is a collection of superstars. However, the issue that Real seem to have is that there's not much room for development for the younger players, and all of the established ones want their name to be the main title of the show. Mbappe, Bellingham, Vinicius, Rodrigo, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Valverde, There's a lot of amazing quality players at Real Madrid, but it's a club that seriously lacks unity and togetherness. And this is an issue that's been highlighted this year because the club have moved on from Carlo Ancelotti, who wanted to leave. They appointed an exceptionally good young manager in Xabi Alonso, but it didn't work. Not because his results were poor. In fact, Xabi Alonso averaged a 71% win rate whilst in charge of Real Madrid. But instead, because he just couldn't hold this collection of players together, the atmosphere got so beyond toxic. Real are second in the league and only a point behind Barcelona, but I don't think anyone currently feels like they're favourites to be winning any of the major trophies this year. Next you've got Atletico Madrid, who are, don't get me wrong, in a very safe position. They're currently third and Simeone's still the manager, but over the last 2 years they've been heavily investing in their squad. In the last 2 years, Alexander Sorloth, Robin Lenormand, Conor Gallagher, Julian Alvarez, Thiago Almada, Giacomo Raspadori, Johnny Cardoso, David Hanko, Ademola Lookman and Alex Baena have all been signed for a lot of money. Atletico have easily spent over €250 million in the last 2 years just on players to bolster their squad, which is of course what you want. You do want them to back manager Diego Simeone.
Shut up and take my money!
But for all of this investment, they don't look likely to win any of the major trophies again. Some of the next teams I would be looking at when thinking about Spain are the likes of Sevilla and Valencia, both of whom are in massive financial problems. Sevilla sit 15th in the league whilst Valencia sit 16th at the time I'm recording this. Sevilla finished 17th last season. They have massive financial distress with a lot of debt. Their playing squad has bled thin and is of nothing impressive whatsoever. Poor management, extreme fan unrest with protests going on, and there's talks of new owners coming in. Even Sergio Ramos spoke about potentially coming back to the club, either as an owner or a player, to help them out. And Valencia are in the exact same position, if not worse. Like Sevilla, the playing squad has bled thin. It is terribly bad for a club the size of Valencia. They have a lot of financial distress, ownership that is really not secure. Except another issue that Valencia have is the stadium crisis. They began construction of a stadium in 2007 and it stalled for 15 years in 2010. They'd resume construction in 2025 and it's supposed to be completed by 2027, but this has been an enormous financial drain for the club. Two more teams I would look at after this is Athletic Bilbao and Real Sociedad. Now, Sociedad aren't winning any major trophies and have had a bit of a poor season this year, but overall Real Sociedad aren't in a particularly bad place. Neither are Atletico Bilbao. However, Bilbao have a massive issue, which is the club's traditional transfer policy. Bilbao don't sign pretty much anyone because they limit themselves to basically playing career mode using only their youth academy. Bilbao only let people play for the club who were either born in or brought up through the Basque region of Spain, which is of course the area that Bilbao are from. Now, this has obviously produced some amazing players like the Williams brothers, Inaki and Neco Williams, alongside Aymeric Laporte, Kepa Arrizabalaga. There have been some great players to come through this region, but you really limit yourself. This has worked in the sense that Bilbao have never been relegated and the club is extremely financially stable. But from a sporting point of view, they are extremely limited. And I can't think off the top of my head of any other clubs around the world that do this. Certainly there's none in England. Now, I mentioned Sociedad because whilst they are not competing directly for any trophies and the club is in a decent position, they've made some really good sales in recent years, selling the likes of Zubamendi and Moreno, making a lot of money for them, and they do have some decent players still at the club like Orziabal, Carlos Soler, and they've got Gonzalo Guedes. But the reason that Sociedad become an issue for Spain is because they are also from the Basque region, which means you have two top flight clubs basically competing for the same youth pool region. Obviously Sociedad can expand this and bring in young players from all over the world, but if you're from the Basque region and end up in Sociedad's academy, it means you're not in Bilbao's academy, which means that's just less players that have the potential to play for Bilbao. Limiting yourself to one region gives yourself a very small pool of people to get players from. When you have another top flight club bleeding some of the players out of that pool, it makes it even harder. Next I would look at Girona, a team that's part of the City group. They were promoted to the top flight in 2022. And by the end of 2024 they'd finished third and ended up in the Champions League. However, the Champions League campaign was a disaster. They failed to replace some of their good players that have been sold on since, like Jovic and Savinho. They finished 16th last year. They're currently back up to 12th at the time I'm recording this. They've brung in players like Marc-Andre ter Stegen, who is immediately get injured. But of course the biggest issue that Girona have is that they are willingly using money to pay and employ Brian Hill, which is a move I'll just never truly understand.
You surprise me to how shit you are.
And the last team I want to look at is Villarreal. Now Villarreal are in a good place. They're 4th in the league. And of course, it was only a few years ago that they won the Europa League under Unai Emery. But since then, Emery's moved on. And does anyone even pay attention to Villarreal? Did anyone even know they were 4th? I don't mean to be disrespectful to them, but they're not exactly a team that stands out for a club that won a European trophy just a few years ago. They were in the Champions League this year as well. They finished 2nd bottom, picked up 1 point and failed to win a single game. Only Kairat Almaty were worse on goal difference. So given all the problems that these Spanish teams have, it's no wonder that the league feels as if it's gone a bit backwards. So what can some of these teams do to try and pick things up and improve the Spanish league to try and get it back closer to what it was before? Because they do have 2 of the biggest clubs on the planet in Barcelona and Real Madrid. Well, Barcelona need to continue to use their youth academy. They could probably easily fix their financial situation if they did sell some of their bigger names. And some of the big names that's coming through their academy that will have cost them nothing but would make them enormous profits. However, from a sporting point of view, they'll never do this because it would reduce the squad. But if Barcelona can continue to be stable with their wage structure and smart in their transfer dealings, it looks as if they're starting to head in the right direction towards a bit more financial security. Real Madrid have financial security, but they've got an issue. They have a massive ego problem. Real Madrid need a dying breed of manager in charge, which is the quality manager who's been there and done that. So many clubs nowadays are hiring project managers and ex-players, and it just won't work. Carlo Ancelotti was the most important player at that team, and a lot of the big name managers are either out of the game, previously already having been at Real Madrid, or have large connections to Barcelona like your Hansi Flicks, Pep Guardiolas and Luis Enrique's. Honestly, if it was me, I think the best thing Real Madrid could do would be get a manager in who just knows how to manage and keep a level head on all of these big name players. If I was them, I'd be going for Mourinho. Atletico Madrid are a hugely historic and traditional club, and they're one of the pragmatic and hard to break down, but of course Atletico have the issue of they're only ever really truly successful when they have a world-class striker up front who can score a lot of the goals from not really as many chances as what you'll get in a more attacking team. And at the moment they just don't have that. Antoine Griezmann's moving into the later stages of his career, and Julian Alvarez just isn't able to score enough goals to drag them further up the table. Despite how good they are, despite the amount of investment, Atletico are still 10 points off the top of La Liga. Sevilla and Valencia basically just need new owners. They need to sort the financial situations out of their clubs so they can start to rebuild. It's something that happens to football teams, it's terrible for fans, and there isn't really anything more that you can say or anything you can do for it. Bilbao and Sociedad are 2 very historic and traditional clubs as well. There's not really anything wrong with what they're doing, there's not really anything that they can fix. Bilbao aren't going to change their entire culture and history. So that's just my opinions on the state of La Liga at the moment. I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and a lot of clubs are going through a various number of different difficulties. I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say in the comments below. Please let me know. Where would you rank La Liga in terms of the other leagues in Europe? And are we all just living on nostalgia? Will La Liga ever be as good as what it was when Real Madrid and Barcelona were at the peak of the Messi and Ronaldo era? Thank you to everyone who's took the time to watch this video, and I will see everyone in the next.